Hello, everybody. Let's get started. First of all, thank you very much again for spending your time here and joining in with this training session. It's a really important topic this week, list building. Everything you need to know about list building, basically, or nearly everything. So list building 101. In terms of what's coming up, your email list remains the root of your online success. I can't overemphasize how important your email list is. As your list grows, so will your income as well. I'll be going through different ways about how to build your list. We've got a number of different ways to go through, very effective ways for you as well, and also how to do that in conjunction with the Be Everywhere system. So how that all connects with vWriter and what we do. So this session is suitable for you, whether you're just getting started, you may not have a list yet, or perhaps you're a more seasoned list building pro, shall we say. I'm sure you will find things that you're unaware of, or things just to remind yourself about, really, about list building and how to take that forward for you. This is a rough sketch of a list building process. So you'll see there in the middle, there is the opt-in opportunity, which could be your squeeze page, a form on your website, some opportunity for someone to add themselves to your list and to become an opt-in for you, so to become a lead for you. And you generally do that with what's called a lead magnet, and I'll be going through that in more detail. So you have traffic at the top, and you basically are sending traffic to the page or to the pages where you have that opt-in opportunity, where you have that form. So generally you'll be sending traffic from the search engines, or rather attracting traffic from the search engines, attracting it and sending it through social. There are advertising options as well, of course. I'll be going through that as well towards the end. And also business partners, for example, joint venture partners who you can do joint ventures with, do deals with, where you send each other traffic and benefit from each other's lists and do things together in that way. So when somebody comes to your opt-in page, they decide whether or not to opt in. If they do decide to opt in, then you'll be going down into the relationship building with them, where you'll be sending follow-up email messages, keeping in touch, and that's really how you're going to start getting the profits from that, from your list building activities. If they do say no, though, everything isn't lost, and I'll be going through this a little bit later as well. You can still follow up with them and build relationships with them in a different way through retargeting, which is a form of advertising. You may have seen it where you've been to a website and then you'll see adverts regarding that website or relating to that website on other websites around the web that guide you back. So even if somebody said no, you may do some retargeting to present other opportunities to them to encourage them to come back and opt in when they feel a bit more comfortable in doing so, and so on. It can also give you more credibility as well. If somebody has been to your website, they then see an advert for your site on, for example, the New York Times or some other large websites, and they think, oh, this might be worth taking another look at after all, and they'll go back to that website and opt in with you instead. After that process. So in terms of what I'll be covering in more depth today, the essentials of list building are really these that you see on the screen. So list management, in terms of managing your list, getting opt-ins on there and communicating with people on your list. A lead magnet, which is going to be what attracts people onto your list in the first place. A follow-up sequence, which I've mentioned before, a sequence of messages where you stay in touch with people. A squeeze page, which is designed to get that opt-in. It's a page specifically designed for people to opt in, and it's optimized for that process. And of course, traffic, which feeds the whole process of list building. So let's start off with list management. If you're completely new to this, you're basically going to want some kind of tool or some kind of service to allow you to manage your database of email leads. So you'll have email addresses and names and so on. And there are a number of companies that do this. Aweber is one of the most popular ones, along with MailChimp. They all do something fairly similar, but they all have different quirks, different features. So one might leap out to you more than another. There's Auto Response Plus. There's Infusionsoft. Some people call it Confusionsoft. It can be a fairly advanced system to get used to using. I've used it in the past. I've since moved away from it largely for different reasons, but it's a very advanced tool if you're more advanced in your business and more advanced with list building technology. There are lots of others out there as well. If you Google for something like email marketing software, you'll see a ton of different such services, but these are really the main ones to use. There's another option as well, which is having an installation of some software on your own server. So that gives you, full control over your list and so on. But obviously, you'll have to manage the software, so that can be more hassle for some people. Other people may feel more comfortable with that particular option. So what these different services do, they allow people to opt into your list easily. They can usually just enter their name and email address, or just their email address onto a form, and their email address immediately goes on to the relevant list within your list management software. So you could have lots of different lists for different purposes set up within that software. For example, you could have different lead magnets attracting people onto your list in different ways, and have a different follow-up sequence that's related to that lead magnet, and so on. You can set up follow-up email sequences within that. So for each auto response sequence you've got in there, set up a number of email messages that will then go out automatically. So the software handles all of that automatically. It knows whether someone has opted in, say, 3 days ago, and is now due message 2 or 3 in your sequence, and so on. We'll just take care of that for you. In my early days online, some people tried to do all of this through using tools like Outlook, which just didn't work at all. Trying to remember when somebody opted into your list and what message that they were going to have to receive next, it was just completely impractical, which is why all these autoresponder companies came out. It became a lot more easy to do it through the automated software that they provide. You can also send out broadcast messages, so you may have a regular e-sign, for example, a regular newsletter that you can send out to one or more groups of leads within your software. You may have promotional messages that you send out from time to time, so you can do an email blast out through the software as well as the automated follow-ups that kind of take care of themselves. It also takes care of unsubscribe requests, so it's really important to ensure that anyone receiving your message has an easy way to unsubscribe out of that, and that's really important from a legal standpoint as well. So if you're sending any commercial type messages, people do need that option to say, no, thank you, I don't want to receive any more. And that's perfectly fine. People's needs change, their relationship with you changes. I've had people unsubscribe and then come back after a few months and so on. So don't get too worried about people unsubscribing. It's a natural part of the process. The key is to really be getting more people on your list than the people that are unsubscribing. It's all part of it, really. A few cautions to put out there as well in terms of building your list. There's always a big question about whether to do single or double opt-in, and there are perfectly valid arguments on both sides of that equation. A lot of people go down the single opt-in route. Generally, that will improve your opt-in rates. It will improve the number of people on your list simply because there are less steps to go through for somebody to be on there. But it does leave you, it does mean there is a little bit of risk that somebody could come back and claim that you are spamming them for some reason. Whereas double opt-in, it does give that extra level of security that not only has somebody left their email address, they've then received an email back to their inbox, they've clicked a link and confirmed that they definitely do want to receive email from you. And that's kind of your proof as well that somebody has opted in and that they definitely do want to hear from you. The double opt-in side as well can also improve your response rates. If somebody's gone to the trouble of actually opting in and then confirming that they do want to receive email from you, they're more likely to pay more attention to your email and so on. But different people have different approaches. I go down the double opt-in route at the moment. I may change again in future. I have used a single opt-in and had a few issues with doing that. I feel a lot safer doing double opt-in. I used to feel a bit reluctant sometimes to send out an email blast to the whole list if I've only got single opt-ins on there, for example, because it would encourage the odd spam complaint to come through. So I just feel a bit safer myself using the double opt-in process. But some people would consider that completely silly thing to do because I'm reducing the number of potential leads on my list. But I'd prefer that the quality of the lead really above the quantity. You've got to be careful as well to only send people what they've opted in to receive. So if they've opted into your list on a particular premise, they've opted in to receive information about a particular thing, you can't then start sending them information about something else. If they've opted in for example, marketing advice or business advice, to then start sending them information about stocks and shares and how to do well on currency exchanges and all that sort of thing, that would be a big no-no because you're not sending them what they've requested to receive in the first place, and that would be seen as spamming them. So just be careful to make sure that all your messages are kind of on target in terms of the type of message that you send out. Another word of caution as well, autoresponder companies do tend to put their interests above yours. That's perfectly okay, but they have a lot of customers to look out for. So if you're sending out emails that are against their guidelines, they're very likely to put an end to your email marketing activities. So you do have to be quite careful about making sure that you comply with all their guidelines and so on. They can easily shut you down. I've had it done to me in the past where I've had a spam complaint and then I've had to spend 2 or 3 weeks trying to get my account back up and running and jumping through different hoops. If they get spam complaints in, they will jump on them fairly quickly and fairly aggressively, or they tend to anyway, simply because they have to protect their deliverability rates for the rest of their customers, to make sure that they can continue to deliver their service to the customers. So it must be a bit of a nightmare being an autoresponder company, really, to have people who may be doing fairly dubious things sometimes, which is why they'll put their interests above your own sometimes, and it can feel a bit unfair sometimes. But that's just how they work and how they have to operate, to put the interests of the whole customers before a single customer. In terms of frequency of communication, generally speaking, most business owners don't communicate enough through their email list. Some are reluctant to do so. Some have a certain fear of people opting out if they start emailing them. Opt-outs are really a good thing, because people who are opting out are showing that they're not interested in what you've got to say, which is perfectly fine. It boosts the open rates, it boosts the deliverability longer term, as well as for the rest of your list. If you've got people on there who are interested, you're going to have people opt in for different reasons, and sometimes there may be fairly dubious reasons. They may have just opted in on the whim, but they aren't really interested. So it's best that they do leave your list and keep them clean. Keep your list clean. So don't have any fear about communicating more than you do now. Most business owners simply don't communicate enough. Once a day, or at least once a day, is perfectly fine. It depends on how you train people coming onto your list, really, what they come to expect with you. And I wouldn't suddenly adjust that as well. If you're emailing once a month now, for example, don't suddenly start emailing twice a day. That'll be a big shock to most people there. So if you're going to make any radical changes in terms of frequency, do so gradually. Generally, that would be my advice. Just build it up gradually, but certainly the more you communicate, the better value you will get from your list. And I'd certainly recommend to email them at least once a week. That's how you keep that relationship going. If you don't manage to do that, then the relationship can go a bit stale, and obviously everybody else is emailing them as well. They're getting an inbox full of stuff, and they'll start to forget about you and what you do, and perhaps even move to a competitor potentially. So to keep your business front of mind, it's best to email them at least once a week. Generally, probably more than that, 2 or 3 times a week would be ideal. But if you can't manage that, then at least once a week. And as I said, don't fear that increased communication level. It's perfectly fine to communicate with people more and more. I'm beginning to see email communication now a little bit like Twitter. People's inboxes are so full of emails. I was going to say in the olden days, but that sounds like 60 years ago or more. 10 years ago, when probably 15 years ago, when all of this was beginning to start, with people emailing and so on, people weren't getting many emails at all. And every email you sent was kind of given a lot more emphasis in their inbox. It would be an event for somebody to get an email. Nowadays, people's inboxes are a continual flow of incoming communications from different people, from different businesses, and it's very like a Twitter setup, really. And because people are used to Twitter, they're a lot more tolerant of increased communication as well. So a few years back, it would be seen as fairly heavy going to communicate with somebody every day, or perhaps more than once a day. Nowadays, it's not so much an issue. I think because of Twitter, people are seeing that they can be communicated with more frequently. Email open rates are generally down on what they were. But that means that to get to them, you have to kind of communicate more frequently to be able to maintain that same level of relationship with you, with them. Even if somebody doesn't open your email, the fact that you've sent an email still maintains that front of mind status for you. I get quite a few emails from people I'm interested in receiving an email from, but I may only open the odd one in, say, 5, 6, 7 emails from them, depending on the subject line, depending on what looks interesting and what doesn't. It doesn't mean I don't want to receive email from them, but in terms of prioritizing my time, I'll only open a few of them, and it'll be the same for you as well. So don't fear sending out increased communications. The more you send out, the better, generally, within reason. So once a day is perfectly fine. And also, your list comes to know what to expect from you. So if you're going to be emailing fairly frequently, then start off doing so that people are then comfortable with you doing that. I tend to, when someone first joins my list, they tend to get emails daily for a few days, and then that begins to reduce, but it just means that they're used to getting emails from me. And also those first few days, they remember who I am and so on, so they don't wonder who's been sending them this email, which can lead to spam complaints and so on. And generally, the advice is to continue communicating with somebody on your list until they either leave your list, so they unsubscribe, or they die. That sounds a bit harsh, but you just have to continue communicating with them. You never know when that value of the lead on your list is going to be realized. For example, it can take several months, several years sometimes, and then you'll suddenly find a lead that opted in a few years back will buy something from you, and so on. So that value of the lead is always there. Just continue to communicate with them. So let's move on to lead magnets and how to create that lead magnet. First of all, why use a lead magnet? What is it about lead magnets that are so important? A lead magnet is really an exchange of value. You're offering something that your potential prospect wants. So it could be a solution for an issue or a situation that they have. And in return for that, you want their contact details. So it's an exchange of value with your prospect. If you go back a few years again, just having a subscribe here for my newsletter type form was quite common. You'd see those all over the place. And because people didn't get many emails, that they would find that more exciting and they'd sign up for a newsletter. Very few people were doing newsletters, and that would be perfectly acceptable. Nowadays, that just does not work at all. You need that lead magnet as well. There are a few circumstances in which it can still work, but it very much depends on how you present that information and your reputation in the marketplace and so on. But generally speaking, that does not work, and you'll need a lead magnet to encourage that opt-in, to offer that value. Basically, a newsletter used to be value enough. It no longer is, so people are looking for more immediate gratification, a more immediate solution for their problems and so on. So offering a lead magnet does give them that instant gratification. They download whatever it is that you're offering. It might not be a download, but we'll go through different examples of lead magnets shortly. But they get that instant gratification from you. And it also allows you to get a lot more leads from the same amount of traffic, because a lead magnet is so appealing to your potential prospect, or at least it should be. You can get a lot more people opting in, so your opt-in conversion rate increases and so on. So let's go through how to create that lead magnet. It's really something so valuable to your target market. So you've really got to think about who your ideal prospect is, that they're willing to exchange their email address for it. And people's inboxes are so full nowadays, they tend to be more protective of their email address. You want to have a lead magnet where people aren't really thinking about trying to protect their details. They're so desperate to get your lead magnet, they're so intrigued by what you offer, that they're willing to just type in their email address to get it. It's a fair exchange as far as they can see. So the way to kind of decide what to give to people as a lead magnet is to really understand who your ideal prospect is. So have a think about what their interests are. It can help to actually think about an individual. So create a persona of what your ideal prospect is. Some people give them a name, give them an age. It's almost like you're writing a novel where you have a character in a book and you need a full character profile. That can be really helpful. So decide what their interests are, what their wants are, their needs, their desires, their ambitions, the type of person they are, what their problems are, their situations. These are all areas where you can step in and relate to them and present them something that is going to be of use to them. So the ideal lead magnet really has to solve a specific problem and make them really want to have the solution that you have available for them. And it can really help to ask yourself this question: what one specific problem can you help your ideal prospect to solve? So just come up with one specific problem and then a lead magnet, something that's going to help them solve that specific problem and that they can access from you by leaving you their email address. That lead magnet, it should be easy to consume. So they're just beginning to start their relationship with you when they opt in with you. So don't be too heavy in terms of what you present them with. It's all about gradual steps. It's about meeting somebody for the first time, just saying hello, and then gradually next time, get to know them a little bit more, have a little chat, and so on. So it's easy, gradual steps. At the same time as your lead magnet being really having to be really attractive for them to consume. To obtain, it should be very easy for them to consume, and the benefit from that is that it's also very easy to create this type of lead magnet for your business. And here's some ideas just to run through. The typical example tends to be a report or a guide. So for example, a PDF document, for example, that could just present some really valuable information for them, or a guide on how to do something. It could be a cheat sheet or a handout. This can just be literally one sheet of a one-sheet PDF document that just gives them some really useful information that they can take advantage of and begin their relationship with you because of. It could be video training. So some people are more comfortable delivering something through video, or perhaps through audio, some kind of training where you're offering them some really useful information through those different media. And it could be a free tool. That's really how I started online, I guess, when I had a free tool on my website. I got a lot of traffic because of that, and it built up from there. A list of resources. People aren't always sure who to use for what, or where to go for particular aspects of whatever their interest is, whether that's business or some hobby or some other aspect. You present yourself as an expert, as an experienced person, and give them a list of resources that's going to be really useful for them. If you're into software, present a free trial of that software. It could be a free trial of, say, a membership site, and so on. just to get that email address from somebody. It could be a quotation for a service that you deliver. It depends on your market, really, what's going to work best for you. In some markets, a quotation would really be the best option to give. People are just wanting a quote for a particular service or a product to be delivered for them. It might be a quiz. That's quite a good option. Again, depending on your market, it can work in some markets, not so well in others. So you can simply ask people different questions. It can be a quiz or a survey, and then after entering their email address, they can perhaps get the results of the survey and see what other people have answered, get some further assistance to you based on what they've answered in the quiz, and so on. Once you have a lead magnet, the good news is you can now start using that to attract opt-ins to your list. It really makes a huge difference having a lead magnet to not having one at all. So I'd certainly recommend that you have that lead magnet in place, and you'll see the results from that for you. So let's move on to follow-up sequences and see how this works. So first of all, why have a follow-up sequence? The magic of follow-up sequences is that you do them once and then they start to work for you on autopilot going forward. So somebody opts in and this amazing system just continues to communicate with them without you having to do any extra work at all. It keeps in touch with people who are interested in your business, in what you sell, what you provide, and does so on complete autopilot for you. As I said, you set it up once. There is zero ongoing work. It's a real magic of the online business world that this takes place. In the old days, of course, without the internet, it was all direct mail, and you had to decide. You had to manually, that there was a manual process about how to send out mail and when to send it out for different prospects on your list, and so on. So it's far easier with email. And this all builds your relationship with them, the know, like, and trust factor. And again, because it all goes on autopilot, it's so easy to do. It adds a lot of value to your business to have these follow-up sequences in place. Keeps your business front of mind, again, all completely automatically for you. And it helps you sell them over time. So when somebody first opts into your list, they're really raising their hand and saying I'm interested, but I'm maybe not ready to purchase yet, or I don't quite understand what's in it for me. I don't quite understand what the benefits are or why I should become a customer with you. I've opted into sites before where I just want to get to know them a little bit more. I might be interested. I might want to buy further down the line, but I just want to understand more about what they do. A lot of that's a subconscious process that people go through. So by having a follow-up sequence, it's really a sales engine for your business, a very powerful one that works on autopilot for you. And it certainly builds your sales conversion rates. If you just have a web page with a sales letter, you'll get very few sales off that directly. The majority of sales really do come through that consistent follow-up with people. They get to know you a little bit. You can present the benefits of what you do more. They understand how that's going to work for them, and so on. So people may come to your website one day and not buy for several months, and the follow-up sequence just keeps them in the loop and keeps open that opportunity for them to purchase from you. And it keeps those communications open. That's really important as well, because you'll have opportunities where you want to be able to email your list, but if you haven't done so for a few weeks or a few months, they become very stale leads and you get much less value out of them. So by having a follow-up sequence, yes, you can keep in touch with them through regular broadcast email, so regular e-signs and newsletters and so on. The follow-up sequences, they keep in touch with them as well without having to do any ongoing work, so to speak. So they just keep that communication open with your prospect, and that opens up opportunities for them. For example, you may have a promotion coming up. All those leads are going to be used to receiving emails from you, and it just improves the results that you get through that as a result. What is a follow-up sequence? So it's a series of predefined email messages. I'm sure you're fairly familiar with this. A sequence of messages that a new lead receives once they've opted into your list. If I go back a few years, there were quite a few people who received these who believed I was personally one by one sending these messages, these email messages out to them. Nowadays, people are a lot more familiar with automated messages and so on. It doesn't diminished their value, but they're certainly a lot more familiar with receiving this type of message now, that they may well just receive a sequence of messages after leaving their email address on a particular website. Generally, it works by sending out an initial immediate message just to confirm that person is now on your list, and perhaps to deliver the particular lead magnet to them for their consumption. And then you will have regular messages going out to them for days, for weeks, for months, even years afterwards, on autopilot for them. The recommendation used to be at least 7 messages to build up that relationship with somebody. With the amount of email people get now, that's completely out of date, and you need a lot more now, and the general recommendation is that you need at least 30 or so. Again, it goes back to the fact people are receiving so many email messages, they will only open up, for example, 1 in 4 or 5 messages that you send them. So that means that you do have to send them a lot more. When people's inboxes were fairly empty and it was only a few people doing email marketing, your message has a lot more chance of reaching them. Now that's no longer the case, so it does take more work, but the values are there, the benefits are there. Once it's all set up, there's no more work to do really. You can go back in, and I certainly recommend to go back into those follow-up messages and revise them every so often. I certainly do. I spot mistakes, for example, that I've made, things I can improve, things that have changed in what I'm offering, and I can now adjust them accordingly, make that sales message more powerful. But it's not all about sending out sales messages. It's a lot about relationship building. So use a mixture of messages. You can remind them about the benefits of doing business with you, what they're going to get out of doing business with you. Focus on providing value to them. You want them to continue wanting to open up your emails, and to do that, you need to provide a reason for them to do so. So be valuable for them, solve problems and situations for them, good advice, show them that you're the expert within your particular niche, show them an easier path to achieve something, and so on. You can also use these messages to build up familiarity with your website. You bring them back to your site through the links in your emails. Build their familiarity with you through sending them to other content. So you don't always have to send them back to your own website. Link back to content you've got elsewhere, such as slide shares, videos on YouTube. Send them to your social pages, so you link up with them on social as well. So while email is really, really important, it's also important to communicate with your prospects through multiple channels now as well, which is what vWriter really helps with. If people get multiple touches through from you, not just on email, but they're also getting touches through from you on social, so they're also seeing you about on their social profiles and so on, their relationship with you becomes a lot deeper, simply because they see you in so many different places. Always keep that door open to the sale, so you're not you're still trying to sell through these email messages, but also just allow them to get to know you a little bit, build up that relationship with them. That's really important. They can't all be heavy buy now type sales messages, but you can certainly every so often do an occasional harder push. You may have a promotional opportunity, you may have a promotion that incentivizes that sale a little bit. You may have a free trial for something where you don't normally have that. You may have a discount. You may have new features coming up, and you're going to be putting the price up soon, and so on, and encourage people to buy from you. The relationship that you build up with people really opens the door for you to be able to then sell to them through your list without them wanting to leave and go elsewhere. If you try and be too heavy with a sales push to start with, they don't know you yet, they don't trust, that they don't know, like, or trust you yet, so you haven't really opened up those doors. You don't have a strong enough relationship for that yet, which is why that follow-up is so important for you. So I mentioned earlier on, I tend to start off more frequently, so the first few messages, and then I generally recommend to move to, say, between 3 and 5 days apart between your message. The reason I do that with follow-up sequences is because you'll also be sending out other messages too. For example, you'll have broadcast emails, for example, newsletters, e-signs, promotional emails, and so on. And it just means people aren't receiving one email after the other in quick succession. So I generally like to email people, no more than once a day. You can get away with emailing them more, as I said, but that's generally how I approach it. So it just leaves open that room for other emails. That you may also find that they opt into other lists that you've got. I know I've got people who are on different lists and getting different follow-up sequences. So if I have the messages 3 or 5 days apart, they're still getting regular emails, but not seeing 2 or 3 in their email box at once, for example. That time period as well allows them to more easily consume what you're sending. Instead of switching off, it could just be too much for them to handle. So it just makes that easier. It maintains that relationship without being too heavy. You're not completely in their face all the time, but just keeps you and your business front of mind for them. The good news is that you don't have to have, it sounds a lot of work to get all those follow-up messages in place. The good news is you don't have to have all those messages in place before you start attracting leads. So don't think that you've got to go out now and create 30 different email messages and load them all into your autoresponder and spend the next few weeks doing that. You don't have to have all those in place before you start getting people on your list. Just allow your email marketing, your list building to improve over time. So I generally recommend to have the first few done and lined up at the beginning, so people get a nice sequence when they first sign up with you. It can also help to do those in one sitting, so one message more naturally follows on from the previous one and so on. It has a bit more flow for people receiving those messages. Go back and revise them every so often as well. As I said, things will change every so often. You'll improve how you're communicating with people over time. Definitely test your subject lines if at all possible. A lot of email software, like I mentioned, allows you to test different subject lines for each message. I've been doing quite a bit of this recently and found a slight change in subject line can mean a huge difference in open rate. And when you start getting higher open rates for your email message, that improves your deliverability. If email providers like Gmail, if they see that people are opening your messages more frequently, they're going to give them higher placement in people's inboxes. They're going to get delivered and read more often. So even just having a capitalized subject line or putting somebody's first name in a subject line, for example, can lead to higher open rates for people. You may have seen the odd email coming through from people with pictures on the subject line. They're actually textual characters, but they look like pictures. So it may be a star or it may be a love heart and so on. They can lead to big increases in open rates because they really capture people's attention. Obviously, you've got to be careful not to overdo those. With webinars, for example, I've been using there's a little play icon that you can put into an email subject line. I've been using those for sending out a replay for a webinar, and that's resulted in a big increase in the open rate of that email. So it's just about testing things to see how to see if you can improve the number of people opening your emails. And obviously, the more people that open them in an email follow-up sequence, that benefit stays with you for a long time. So you'll get more people over many months, years even, who open up those emails and benefit from your information. Increases your traffic as well, of course, if you're pointing people back to your website. So all these little things, they really start to stack up. And in terms of the number of messages you've got, just allow them to build up over time. You won't be able to do all 30 at the same time, or very unlikely that you'll be able to do that. It's quite a big ask, but just add more over time. Go through them, add a few more. I generally recommend to do a few at once. You get more into the flow of doing them when you do so. But for example, when you have a really good blog post that you're really proud of, that you think would be really valuable to your prospects, add that into a follow-up message. Just say, I thought this would be really helpful for you. Guide them through to your blog post, send them to other content, and of course all this builds up the traffic that you get to your website, the amount of comments, the likes, the shares, and so on for other types of content as well. There may be news every so often that supports what your product does, that makes people more likely to want to purchase what you do, for example. You can send up, you can add in follow-up messages that present that information to them. You may have testimonials and case studies that you get in, and that could form the basis of a new follow-up message that you then send out. And just focus on giving value to your prospects. So share your expertise, share something that could help people on your list, and through that you build up your relationship with them. And don't forget, you can also sell third-party products and services too. It's not just about selling your own products. Some people are very protective of their list and refuse to ever do this for some reason. But if somebody has had, say, 30 odd email messages from you and they've still not bought, so they've still not moved over to a different list. So just to explain that a little bit, you can have a different list for customers who buy from you and set up your email software so that as soon as somebody buys a product or service from you, that they have a follow-up sequence that encourages them to do. You can then automatically take them out of that follow-up sequence. So you stop trying to encourage them to buy it when they already have done, and they'll move to a different list. So if somebody's still on your list after 30 of these follow-up email messages and they've still not bought from you, for example, that they might do in the future, but there's no reason why you can't offer something else to them as well and start to realize some of the value from that lead. It may be that they're not ready to purchase from you yet, but they may be ready to purchase a different type of product, a complementary product. They might be more willing to buy it from somewhere else, and you can just benefit from that and get that value from the lead more quickly than you might do otherwise, earn some commissions and so on based on something relevant that's also going to be useful to your prospect. Let's have a look at squeeze pages. This is how you're going to get those opt-ins onto your list. What is a squeeze page? It's also called a name squeeze page. This was invented largely by a guy called Jonathan Mazel in Hawaii, who I worked with very early in my career, or rather he asked me to do some work for him very early, and he was a big stepping stone for me, really. The sole purpose of this page is to get the opt-in from somebody who lands on that page. So it's completely optimized to get that opt-in from somebody, to get that person onto your list. It's got no other purpose other than to do that. It's where you offer your lead magnet, where you're offering your value to that potential prospect and asking them for their email address in exchange, or possibly their name and email address. And I'll show you some examples of these. This one is from the Motley Fool at fool.com, and it's a fairly different type of squeeze page than you might see elsewhere, but basically it's the same concept. You enter your email, and this one in particular focuses on tracking stocks. So you enter your email and you pick some stocks that are useful to you, and they will follow up with you. So it's a fairly sophisticated email type system that they're using, of course, but it's an example of a squeeze page where the whole focus of the page is based on getting that email. And interestingly, what I found was when I left this page, when my focus went away from that particular browser window, what I saw when I went back was a little pop-up window came up within that web page and just more prominently asked me for my email, so made that a lot more clear that they wanted my email address. And I've got no doubt that doing that adding in that pop-up, that window to their page, boosted their conversion rate fairly significantly. So you may be on that page and just went away to look at something else. When you come back, it jumps in your face that that's what they want you to do. So it's a very interesting use of technology. This one is from Eben Pagan from www.dating.com. So a dating website after people who want to know more about dating and to date more successfully. It's a different type of squeeze page where he's got a video for you, which will help him to relate to you a lot more easily to build that relationship. This one does actually, interestingly, offer a newsletter, but the way he's done it makes it very effective. You'll notice on the left-hand side, he's also got a report there that he'll send you, the 10 most dangerous mistakes men make with women, whatever they may be. So he's doing this in a certain way that's worked. I've got no doubt he's tested this fairly extensively. He's asking for a name and email address and a button. Some marketers will take a very different approach, that they'll only want your email address and a button. He's asking for a first name and email. That's generally the approach I take as well, to ask for name and email. But the less fields that you have on the form, the better your conversion rate. But then if you don't have somebody's first name, your ability to develop that relationship with them is, I feel, fairly diminished. For example, having somebody's first name on the subject line can increase those open rates quite a bit. So you trade off, one thing for another, really. Another example of a nice looking squeeze page, you've got the benefits of why somebody should log in down the left hand side, and you've got a video. And if you actually click the video, it looks like a video that you can click and watch. If you click it, a little pop-up will come up asking you to just click the Access Now button. And when you do click that button, it then invites you to enter your email address. So this is a fairly different concept that can be fairly effective. You're not, in the first instance, asking for somebody's details. You only ask for them when they have requested something off you. So they're requesting access when they click the Access Now button, and it changes the dynamic of that relationship, and quite often that can give a big boost to conversion rates as well. So all these different things are worth testing. There are some key elements of a squeeze page. Basic elements: your offer, so what you're offering somebody in exchange for their details. You'll have an opt-in form where they can leave their email address, and you'll also need some privacy information on there where people can read your privacy policy. That's really, really important. So just have a privacy page on your website somewhere and link to it from your opt-in page, from your opt-in form. In terms of boosting conversions, there are different. I've talked about the number of fields already. So the more fields you have on there, the less opt-ins you'll get. So some people have opt-in forms where they ask for name, so first name, last name, email address, where did you see us, or all this kind of information. That will radically reduce the number of opt-ins that you get. The headline obviously makes a big difference. One headline can make a huge difference compared to another one. Just a slight change in language can make all the difference sometimes. The amount of text on the page, is worth testing as well, whether just a headline on its own and an opt-in form is going to work better for you than a headline and some supporting text. A lot of people now are moving to just having a headline, or certainly testing that, and that in some markets can be very, very effective in terms of getting really high opt-in rates. The idea is really that people have less reason to not opt in. There could be a bit of text in the page that just overwhelms them or makes it look a bit more complex or could put them off. So just having a headline, there's little to object. You just get the pure benefit in the headline, and I might as well enter my email address and see what this is all about. And that's really the idea. Graphics can make a huge difference as well, having really effective graphics on your opt-in page. The overall layout, changes in layouts. I've certainly seen changes of 20, 30, 40% just by moving elements on the page around a little bit. So testing is really, really important for your squeeze page. I'd really advise to just test on a continual basis. So test, and test some more. See what works for you, see what doesn't. There's a whole session in the Be Everywhere Academy on split testing, so I'd certainly recommend to go through that if you haven't already. Really small changes on your squeeze page can lead to huge leaps in conversion rates. And the better that conversion rate, the more leads you're going to get from the people visiting your page, the more profits you will achieve. Obviously, the more people you have on your list, the more profitable that's going to be for you. It improves the returns for you on content marketing. You'll be getting more leads, so more incoming profits. That means that the money you spend on content marketing is going to be more effective and go further. There's a it makes a big difference as well between running a successful ad campaign and an unsuccessful ad campaign. If you do a few tests and you're able to, for example, double your conversion rate, which is perfectly possible and very frequently happens, that can make a ad campaign profitable, whereas before it may have been unprofitable. It may not have attracted enough leads for you, and that testing should certainly be continuous. So you'll always find something else to test. You can always improve your conversion rates. Some opt-in pages achieve, opt-in rates of 70, 80%, which sounds incredible, but it also depends on where that traffic comes from. And certainly test different lead magnets as well. So it's not just about what's on the page. It's also about the value that you're offering to people. And certain lead magnets will perform a lot better than others. So I'd certainly suggest having lots of those or different lead magnets available. And different traffic sources will also have very different results. For example, a joint venture partner sending traffic to your page on the basis of a recommendation, that will have a much higher conversion rate than you sending traffic through, say, a banner ad, where it's just you saying, opt in, and people don't really know anything about you. So you'll see radically different conversion rates, and also a different page will perform better for traffic from different places as well. So if you're running Facebook ads, for example, it can be very effective to have a page on your website that just has a little bit of a Facebook look and feel, so people still feel connected with you and it's more easy for them to opt in with you. So different looking squeeze pages can have very different results depending on where that traffic comes from. So it's just something to work on testing as you become more advanced with all of this. I'd also consider your whole approach to your website and your business in general. The leads on your list, they really give you a whole lot of power. And I'd really consider, if you're not already, consider redefining your whole website so that it's purely focused on list building and not trying to make that initial sale. The vast majority of those sales will come through that follow-up, as I've been through. So the more leads that you have on your list, the more effective that sale making activity is going to be for you. And you can try the approach of not trying to sell them on your website at all. You may have pages on there that aren't really visible to most people coming to have a look around, but once somebody's on your list, then send them to those sales pages when you have certain offers for them. I know somebody who takes this approach to the max, and they're very, very successful in doing so. Their whole website is really designed to get that opt-in, and it's only once somebody's on their list that they then start over time. Once they've built up that relationship, they then start selling to them and sending them to other pages on their website that most people won't really see. So let's have a look at traffic and how to actually get traffic to that squeeze page. Obviously, without traffic, that squeeze page is going to be fairly redundant, and we'll see how this all fits in with the Be Everywhere strategy and system as well. So with your blog posts, over time, you'll find them attracting traffic from search engines. You'll see people, increasing numbers of people finding those posts on the search engines in different ways. Within your posts, I'd recommend to have those calls to action in there. So telling people to go somewhere and opt into your list, have opt-in opportunities. If you take a look at some of my posts on my blog, you'll see links in there to certain opt-in pages where it fits in naturally to the value to the post itself, to what I'm providing within that post. So just incorporate those into your blog posts. For your articles, so articles on eZone articles, on other article directories, in the resource box, have a link to a squeeze page from that resource box. So when people have read your article, they see the link in your resource box, they then want to click through and opt into your list from your squeeze page. Generally speaking, traffic from content like articles is a lot more valuable to you, simply because you know that they're interested, they've qualified themselves by reading your content and then clicking through. So you tend to get pretty good conversion rates from that traffic. Very similar for slide shares. Again, you'll have a call to action in that presentation linking to a squeeze page. Videos, very similar concept again, especially if you're following the Be Everywhere strategy and filming the slide share presentation. That's all going to work in a very similar way to guide people through to your squeeze page. Social, again, really your social accounts. It's very difficult to sell to somebody on social through social profiles directly. What you should be doing is trying to get people on your social profiles onto your email list, and from there you can then sell them. So it's about sending traffic on social to your content, and this is all activities that vWriter helps with, of course. So once they're reading your content, once they're consuming your content, they're far more likely to opt into your list through your links, through your calls to action that you've got on that content. They end up on your squeeze page and opt in, and once they've opted in, you can start to realize the value of those social followers. And of course, all of this activity, it's all building traffic, leads, and sales for your business. There are other ways to build up traffic as well. Partner with other list owners. You may have an affiliate program that does this en masse, effectively offering commissions on sales or some other incentive if somebody refers somebody to you. You can have the affiliate link point to a squeeze page, so you really decide that squeeze page, that opt-in, is going to be the initial point of contact between you and a potential prospect, and from there you will start to sell to them and make that affiliate program profitable for the affiliates who are sending you traffic. Joint ventures, very similar concept, but on a more one-to-one basis. So, for example, holding webinars with partners. If you hold a webinar with a partner who has a large list and they invite their list to your webinar, that can add hundreds, occasionally thousands to your list at a time, depending on who you're partnering with. You can do ad swaps with partners as well. So you may have a recommendation for a product that goes out to your own list, and they may do the same for you. And again, have that link going back to a squeeze page. So you're trying to get that opt-in initially, and from there you'll be able to realize the value. It's not much point just having them go to a page where they can't opt in, because a lot of them you won't see or hear from again. So if you can get that opt-in, if at all possible, that's really going to be valuable for you. And just generally things you can do for mutual support. You may have links on partner websites and so on, and similar, you helping them as well in different ways. There's also the advertising option as well, of course. And in terms of making that profitable for you, you really need to know the value of each subscriber on your list. So you then know how much you can spend to get a new lead for yourself. And let's just go through how you would actually define that. So how would you decide how much a subscriber is worth to you? There are different ways of doing this. For working out, say, the monthly value of each subscriber on your list, you would generally look at what you currently earn through your business on a monthly basis, and then divide that by the number of people on your list to work out how much each subscriber is worth. None of these methods are particularly exact, but you're just after a rough idea. You can get the lifetime value per subscriber as well, and this generally means that you're willing to lose some money up front, but with the knowledge that over time you will get that back and then some with the lifetime value per subscriber. So you may not see it within the first month or 2 or 3 months, but over time you'll start to get that value from that subscriber. They'll become more valuable for you. So you basically do that same monthly calculation but spread it out over 3 years, work it out over a 3-year period. You can get an annualized figure, so you would generally do that by looking at your earnings over the previous 12-month period and then divide that by your list size to see how much each lead is worth to you per year. That kind of assumes that your list stays the same, but it gives you a rough idea of how much each subscriber is worth to you. On average, and this figure goes back several years now, but it's a very widely quoted figure that the rough average is $1 per hour, per subscriber. But it does depend on what you sell. Not everybody's going to be able to achieve that, but it's certainly worth aiming towards. A lot of people achieve more than that. It does depend on what you sell, how responsive your list is, your niche, if you sell a continuity program, for example, that can add a lot of value per subscriber on your list. So where people are paying monthly and so on. If you've got partnerships with other businesses where you're selling their products and so on, and really boosting the value of subscribers on your list through messages that you send out to them. In terms of retargeting, I mentioned this briefly earlier on, but this is another form of advertising where you're getting people to come back to your website once they've been to you once. They may not have opted in to start with, but you can offer them other opportunities for them to do so. It could be that one particular lead magnet wasn't right for them, but another one might well be. For example, there may be a related webinar or free training that you offer that you can then put ads for into your retargeting ads and follow up with people in those ways. Just remind them that you exist. You may find that somebody wasn't ready to opt in on a particular day, or they could have just gone away and forgotten about it, got distracted, which is really easy to do. The retargeting means that you just keep in touch with them, that you bring them back to your website, and that can be really valuable, a really valuable type of advertising for you. For other types of advertising, you can advertise on Twitter. They have something called a lead generation card, and you can see an example of one here. They have your name and your email address already pre-filled, so it's really easy for someone on Twitter to opt in using one of these lead generation cards, and then you can opt to advertise this particular card. It also catches your eye, as you can see, because you can see your own information in the tweet itself, and readers can just click that button to opt in fairly instantly. There is more information on that link on the screen, so blog.vWriter.com/Twitter cards, if you want to find out more about how that type of card works. Facebook ads, these are extremely targeted because of all the data that Facebook has. They really know a great deal about what people are interested in. So if you have a business in a specific niche, you can really focus very high in a very highly targeted way towards the type of prospect that you want to attract. Google AdWords has a number of options for display ads, of course, so banner ads around the web and other textual ads, and their ads on search as well. So for particular keywords that people are searching for, solo ads. So get advertising put into other email lists to advertise your lead magnet and attract prospects to you. And a great site for doing that is Udemy.com, UDIMI.com, basically a trading place for solo ads where you can book ads for your lead magnet to advertise your list and so on. LinkedIn ads, they tend to be more expensive, but the quality of the lead from there, especially if you're in a business type niche, you're a B2B, that can be very valuable. And the opt-in rates can be quite high from LinkedIn ads. And then, of course, there's lots of other advertising opportunities out there, Bing, 7Search, and so on. So to wrap up, some final thoughts. Just be patient with list building. It's definitely worth it, but it just takes time to achieve. And generally, the more that you get on your list, the more you're then able to. It certainly takes time to build that relationship with prospects as well. So don't be too disheartened when people don't buy immediately. They're very unlikely to, in fact. New leads on your list, they're very rarely immediately profitable for you. It does depend on where they come from and so on, but that relationship just takes time, and it takes different amounts of time for different types of prospect. It can easily take weeks and months. It can sometimes take years for somebody to become a customer with you. I've had people buy from me when they've been on my list for 3 or 4 years, and they finally get to a point where it's the right time for them to purchase. So don't dismiss leads on your list that aren't buying anything. It's just maybe not their time yet. I've been to conferences where people have bought a ticket to a conference, for example, for several hundred or even a few $1,000s, and they haven't bought anything before, and they've been on that list for 4 or more years before they've bought something. So it just needs that patience, really. The bigger your list, the easier it becomes to add more leads, simply because it opens up things like joint venture opportunities. You get more authority because of that list size. More people are willing to do joint ventures with you. You also get social proof when you're sending people to your websites and to social. You get more feedback and so on, and that builds your level of authority, your engagement levels. You're also going to get more word of mouth recommendations, more people on your list, more people to spread the word about your business. So it really does start to snowball, but you just have to be patient in those early days. You've really just got to kind of have the faith and keep going and just improve things, as I've been through. So that concludes the presentation. I've gone on a few minutes longer. So a brief period for questions if anybody has anything. Thank you, Alan. You're very welcome.